10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 282. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 282 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us yet again for another episode. This week we are going to finish up our series on pentatonics and taking a much closer look at some different possibilities with one of the most common scales in music, not even just jazz. So this week we're going to talk about some exercises you can do to develop flexibility in your ability to play pentatonics. But before we jump into the episode, just wanted to, as usual, remind you that this is a listener-supported show, and that means we do not have any advertisements on the show. We rely on small monthly donations from all of you out there that listen to the show to keep us going. And you do get fantastic rewards with that small monthly donation, including a PDF and audio example that goes along with each episode. And at this point, that is 282 PDFs that you can find on our Patreon site. And Patreon is the place where you can pledge your support directly to the show. In order to find that link and get yourself signed up today for all those rewards, you can go to 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, and get yourself signed up today. Got some new patrons and some people that have edited their pledges from $3 to $5. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to those people. Thank you to our new $5 patron, Nick. Thank you to our two new $3 patrons. Thank you to Tim Patchen and Doug. And I want to also thank Nayland and Michael for upping their pledges from that $3 level to the $5 level. So thank you and welcome to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family. And of course to the other over 300 people that we have over there. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. It does make this show possible. So again, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, get yourself signed up for instant access to all those materials. All right, let's jump into the episode. So basically what we've done on parts 1, 2, and 3 of this series is we've taken a 2-5-1 and we've talked about possibilities for pentatonics that we can use over these different chords. And we've stayed pretty diatonic on the major chord. We did add the Lydian sound, which is the sharp 11, and on the dominant, we did add a little altered thing. But for the most part, we've been staying pretty inside. Now, we did talk about a McCoy-Tyner lick that did not stay inside that diatonic sound. It went all over the place. It was complete command of this pentatonic language. So the way that I wanted to finish off the series was giving you a few ideas on how you can practice pentatonics to have the maximum amount of flexibility. And just a little caveat here, a little side note, is that this is really a way to practice almost any harmonic or melodic pattern that you are working on. This order of keys and this way of thinking will pretty much carry over to anything that you're practicing. So it's a lot bigger than just the pentatonic concept, but we're going to use the pentatonics as a vehicle for these different orders, just because that's what we've been talking about this month, okay? So ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to be able to play whatever device we are using in any order on command. We want to be able to have complete flexibility and an ability to change what we're doing on the fly. And when we have this ability, we can be completely creative in our playing, meaning that if we hear something that we want to play, but it is some wildly unrelated key, or if it's a direction that we didn't even know that we wanted to go in, but all of a sudden we hear it and we want to move in that direction, we want to have the flexibility to be able to play that other key or take it in whatever direction we would like to go with minimal friction, right? Because so much of playing jazz is in the moment thinking and, taking a new direction on something, at that moment that you hear it and you want to experiment with it. So these orders that I'm going to show you for practicing your pentatonics are really going to lend themselves to that flexibility. And they also contain a variety of really, really interesting sounds that you may not be used to, because you might be used to practicing things in all 12 keys by simply moving around the circle of fourths or something like that. And we have touched on this topic before, but it's always good to talk about it again and re-explore, how to develop this flexibility that I'm talking about. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a major pentatonic and we are going to play through all 12 keys, but in a variety of different orders. Some of them will be very typical to you, some things that you've probably worked on already, and then others of these will be orders that you've maybe never thought of before, right? But the idea is to get out of our comfort zone and be able to play any pentatonic at any time. And this exercise is really going to help you. So let's start with the first order and let's talk about the exercises. So the first thing to realize if you look at your PDF is I've organized everything in triplets, because if we play a major pentatonic scale root to root, that's 6 notes total, right? So that makes sense. We're going to use 2 eighth note triplets to play this pattern. And this is just a starting point. You can get as creative as you would like with your rhythmic scheme, but this is just a nice, even way to play something across one measure of 4/4 and make the pattern work out at its simplest base level. So you're going to notice there's 2 triplets. Every 2 triplets represents 1 pentatonic scale, and then we move to another key. All right. So let's look at the first order. The first order is one that you may have been doing already. I would guess that a lot of you out there have been practicing in this fashion, and that is simply going through all 12 major pentatonics, moving in half steps. So if you've practiced things in half steps before, this will sound very familiar to your ears. What I've done on the sheet is I've written out the first 6 keys for you, and then it's your job to take it through the next 6 keys. But this is how it sounds. So you get the idea, and then you would carry that through all 12 keys, all right? Now, if you've worked on stuff in half steps, that's going to sound very, very familiar to you. We're just utilizing it with the major pentatonic. If you've never worked on something in half steps before, this might sound pretty foreign to you, but it's a great way to start to put something in all 12 keys. So now what we're going to do is we are going to raise the interval to whole steps. So this time we would start on a C major pentatonic, and then we would go to a D major pentatonic, so we're moving in whole steps. Now, the important thing to realize with this is that you're going to have to work on it in 2 sets of 6 keys each, because after you get through 6 keys, you're going to be back in the key that you started in. And then you want to raise everything by a half step and start the other 6 keys. This is one of my favorite sounds. You guys know from listening to this podcast, I love the sound of things moving in whole steps, triad pairs, all different kind of things. But here is what whole steps sounds like. And then I would be back to the key that I started on, and I would raise everything by a half step and do the other 6 keys. So there's whole steps. I just love that sound. It's so bright. And I don't know, that just lends itself to my ears. I guess that's who I am as a player. I just really enjoy that sound. Okay, so the next one is going to be moving in major thirds. So you're going to go from the key of C, then you're going to jump to the key of E, then you would jump to the key of A flat, moving up a major third each time. Now, the thing about this one is it only goes through 3 keys before it comes back around again. So you're going to have to practice this in 4 sets of 3 keys each. I'm just going to do 1 set for you. So that's kind of a nice sound, very unexpected if you've never worked on something in major thirds before. I almost said whole steps. All right, the next one is going to be minor thirds. So we're going to go from a C major pentatonic to an E flat, to a G flat, to an A. So again, since this is a 4-key run, you're going to have to do it in 3 sets of 4 keys each. And I love this sound as well. And if you're a fan of like the diminished chord, that is a sound that should be very, very familiar to you. A lot of people will use that over a dominant 7 flat 9 chord and actually use the extensions to play a pattern like that. So that one may sound a little bit familiar to you. There is so many possibilities with that particular pattern. All right, and we're going to finish up with what you may have thought would have been one of my first orders of going through the keys, but I decided to put it at the end just to kind of switch things up and get you outside of this pattern, which is going to be the pattern that you use for so many different ideas, and that is the circle of fourths. So this is a great one. It allows you to get through all 12 keys, and as we know, jazz chord progressions move around that circle of fourths so much of the time, it's definitely going to be valuable for you. So this one goes from C up to F, up to B flat, E flat, so on and so forth, right around the circle of fourths. This should sound pretty familiar to you if you've ever practiced anything that I present to you on this show. We talk about this a lot. So you get the idea, and then you would just continue that right around the circle of fourths till you got through all 12 keys. So if you utilize all of these patterns that I've presented to you, you are really going to have a ton of flexibility with the pentatonic scales. It's going to allow you to shift back and forth between any number of pentatonics, and it's really going to allow you to do it freely. Right? So this just gives you so much more ammunition in your quest to be as creative as possible. So what I might do is I might pick one of these orders a week, or if you feel like you can get through the 12 keys really quickly, I might pick one of these orders per day and just practice getting through all 12 keys. And if you do that for long enough, your familiarity with the pentatonics and your ability to shift on a dime what pentatonic scale you're playing is really going to ramp up to a point that you could just freely use these. Okay? So hopefully that was beneficial. I hope you enjoyed this series on pentatonics. May have given you something new to think about. We're going to take a look at our lick of the month next week, and then we will have our usual tune of the month where we'll use some of these ideas in the 4th week of the month this month. So let me know if you have any questions. Good place to get in touch with me is the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group, or you can always email me at 10minutejazzlesson.com. For all the Patreon members, I am also available on that site. Just shoot me a message and I will get right back to you. I hope everybody's doing well out there. As always, staying safe and healthy. And we'll see you next week with a brand new episode. Have a good one, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.